It's been a good couple of weeks for Leicester City. They're through to the quarter-finals of the UEFA Europa Conference League. They had a good Premier League win as well over Brentford. So we'll assess all of those on this week's Extra Time here on LCFC TV and LCFC Radio with me, Dan Bates. And we've got a full house today. Iwan Roberts, Tony Cottee and Matt Elliott join us as well. Iwan, I gather it was a nice little weekend off for you ahead of the international break where you'll be even busier.
It was, Dan. It was the first in the season. I should have been up in the Riverside working at the Middlesbrough-Cardiff game, but because Middlesbrough's still in the FA Cup, that game was postponed. So I had a nice little weekend off, and the sun was smiling, mate. The sun was out.
Lovely. Tony, we don't need to ask you about yesterday, but we can ask about Thursday, because that went really well, didn't it?
I was at both games, Dan. Yeah, I was. Thursday was everything I wanted and more for the West Ham fan that I am. It was a wonderful evening. They played really well and got through against a very, very good Seville team. And looking forward to going to Lyon. I'm listening to your exploits in France last week. That makes me a little bit worried about going to Lyon, Dan. But I'll have to take some tips on not what to do. Yeah, it was great on Thursday, and then I went to the Tottenham game yesterday, and it was exactly what I thought it would be, a really hard game for West Ham, following on from Thursday night. And I think what it does do, it puts in perspective how well Leicester done to get a really good result against Brentford, because it's so hard when you play on Thursday nights. And West Ham weren't at the races yesterday, but Leicester certainly were.
Yeah, Tony referenced there Matt and I's trip to Rennes on Thursday. We've seen far too much of each other, Matt, haven't we, in the last couple of weeks? So the international break is come at a good time for us too, I think.
But that's been the case for the last couple of years or so, Bates. But we carry on, professionals that we are. But it was ultimately an excellent trip because Leicester got through, similarly to West Ham, over the two legs. But long journey, but that was made up for by the atmosphere at the stadium, wasn't it? I'll keep forgetting the pronunciation. Dan, you can help me out.
Roazhon Park. Not that difficult, I suppose.
On Monday morning it is, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it was just an unusual sort of stadium. It just gave off this great sort of aura. But then when the supporters were in it, it was something very out of the ordinary, wasn't it? There were, 3,000, 4,000 fans there, an hour and 45 minutes before kick-off, all condensed behind the goal. The scene was set, and you thought it's going to be a tough night's work for Leicester City because the much renowned passion of the fans, much had been made of it. Their Rennes' home form, in contrast to their away form, and you thought, right, just try and hold out and don't concede an early goal. And they didn't manage to do that, and you did fear the worst, I have to say. But the game to and fro, didn't it? Leicester on top at times, under the cosh at others. But by hook or by crook, they squeezed through, didn't they? But a few casualties along the way, but ultimately, Leicester were victorious. And it's no mean achievement. They're sort of under the radar a little bit, this Rennes team, but they're an excellent outfit. Leicester have done really well to prevail.
You were covering it for us, Ewan, weren't you, on Thursday via Zoom? What did you make of the game? Obviously, as we've been referencing, a fantastic result.
It was, especially when what happened after 8 minutes, them getting that goal. Sloppy goal, we have to say. But once they'd scored that, I thought Leicester really... I thought they controlled the first half, really, without, looked dangerous on the counter-attack in that first half. Should have scored. Who was it who went clean through?
Harvey Barnes.
Iheanacho. Harvey Barnes.
Barnes went through, and then he had the shot, and then Iheanacho had a half chance on the rebound.
Yeah, and Keenan Dewsbury Hall, if he had a little bit more pace, he might have got through. So I thought, having conceded that early goal, I thought it was a really good response from the lads. Second half, up until 75 minutes, I thought they controlled the game. But they slowed the tempo, looked dangerous going forward, created a couple of chances. Iheanacho unlucky with the one that he scores, but he's just gone a second too early. If that counts, it's tie over. And you have to say it was backs to the wall stuff for the last 15 minutes. I mean, I was watching behind the sofa here at home, chewing your nails. It was a great night, really a good night. Because I've just looked at their result yesterday. They beat Metz 6-1 at home yesterday, did Rennes. So, and if I'm a Premier League manager, I'm looking at one or two of their players. I mean, the left back, I think he's a tremendous player. I think he gives you so much going forward. They're a very, very good side. That, you know, I think they're second now in League or whatever it's called. So it was job done. That, you know, that was the thing. Had the 2-goal advantage after the first leg. Okay, lost the second leg, but went through on aggregate and through to the quarter final now.
Well, that now makes them, with yesterday's results, winning 6-1, as Ewan says. PSG lost. They're now the top scorers, Tony, in Ligue 1. They've only conceded 1 goal less than PSG and Marseille, the two teams ahead of them. They're sat in that third spot, which is a race for the Champions League. So again, it is some achievement that Leicester were able to go there, concede so early, yet be able to hold on in the way that they did. Yeah,
it was a fantastic performance, Dan, wasn't it? And most of all, the result. I mean, football's about results. It's about getting through, and you know, sometimes you can get through and play fantastically well. Other times you get through, you scrape through. But I think it was always going to be a tough draw. And you know, I'm just looking at some of the teams, the likes of Marseille and Roma, left in this competition. Obviously, PSV coming up in the next round. You know, it's not going to be an easy competition to win. That's for sure. Can Leicester win it? I've said before, Dan, I believe they can. I think they've got the squad. They've got players coming back from injury. Nice little break coming up, obviously, which will help. But I think they've got the players in this squad to go on and win the trophy. And, you know, I've just looked at the league table, 10th in the Premier League. Yes, they've got games in hand, Leicester, but it's a big ask to try and get into that 7th position to get into the Europa Conference League next year. They're already in it. They've already got a great chance. The fans are enjoying the journey. Got a tough game, as I say, coming up against PSV. But I thought that was a marvellous result from Leicester on Thursday night. I really did.
Yeah, you look at the outpouring of joy that the fans had, Matt, not just at full time, but in Rennes the night before, in Rennes on the day of the game, and then even on social media, how much they enjoyed the trip and how much fun they're finding, excuse me, the Conference League. And I'm sure they'll be looking ahead to PSV to go to Eindhoven as well.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. I think took a little bit of getting the head round, didn't it, for supporters and even Brendan Rodgers himself, really, when Leicester slipped in the Europa Conference League after, you know, having aspirations to do very well in the Europa League itself. I think initially there was a bit sort of scepticism about not so much the quality, but the authenticity of the competition, because it's relatively new and all those different bits that come into the equation. But on Thursday, it had the feel of a real high-level European encounter, didn't it? Because it was two teams that, you know, very good standard teams, two evenly matched teams. Rennes, you know, up to this point, not too many people knew too much about them. Certainly Leicester City supporters do now, because they got a team packed with quality players, really, and they played some lovely football. And the fact that Leicester were able to keep their opportunities to an absolute minimum, really, throughout the 2 legs, pretty much. There was plenty of times they had good football, not too many outstanding chances. When they did create them, Cassius Michael was in top form, and particularly at key moments in the latter stage of the second leg. But I don't know, that there was a real buzz, anticipation, excitement about being on a European tour again, and it was good to see the supporters there in their droves, really. What was it, 1,100 or so? 1,103, as we were reliably informed by Jim Donnelly, the support liaison officer. But there was a real sort of zest for it, wasn't there? And I think it meant a lot to the players. It meant a lot to Brendan Rodgers. You're right in saying it's his first European competition quarter-final that he's in now, isn't it? Have I beaten you to that stat, Dan?
I think so, Matt. I think so.
I can say it. I'm sure Ewan will correct me if I'm wrong. But, you know, it was a big occasion. And also, as Tony refers to, there's not too much going to happen, you would think, one way or the other in the Premier League. It's about sort of consolidating themselves, towards the end of the season. Some players coming back, picking up some results, hopefully, and finishing with a bit of a flurry. But it's weird now. The Europa Conference was sort of deemed as, a secondary competition, shall we say. Now it's the primary target to go and win that competition, which, as Tony said, will be extremely difficult.
Still to come on Extra Time, we'll review the Brentford game. Of course, we'll look at the players that have returned from injury, which is great to see. Obviously, as Matt's alluded to, other players have got injured, which is a shame, but we'll concentrate on the positives. But Ewan, we've got to talk about the draw, firstly, at PSV in the next round, in the quarterfinals of that competition. They won 5-0 yesterday. They're second in Eredivisie. They're, I think, a couple of points behind Ajax in the race for the title there. So, again, it's going to be far from easy, this one. Yeah,
and if you thought the atmosphere on Thursday night in Rennes was good, was special, I think the atmosphere in Eindhoven will be better. I've been there once. Wales played there a few years ago, and it's a cracking stadium. It really, really is. And they're a very, very good side. They've got a couple of Brazilians in the side. One that was on loan at Spurs, Vinicius, I think it is, was on loan at Spurs last season. I think the start of their side is a World Cup winner who's actually scored the winning goal in the World Cup final in 2014. I think it was Mario Götze, who's a tremendous player, had a great career. Didn't quite work out for him at Bayern Munich, but they're a good side. Second top scorers in the Dutch league behind Ajax. And it is between those two who will win the league. I think there's a couple of points behind Ajax, who normally sort of run away with that league title. It's going to be a tough game, Dan, but when you get to the quarterfinals, the semi-finals of competitions, 9 times out of 10, they're always going to be tough games.
Yeah, I think everyone was obviously looking at the likes of Marseille and Roma, Matt, weren't they, in the draw? And then when fans got Rennes, they probably thought, okay, good opportunity. Then you look at the league form, you look at how well they're doing, and it was a worry. And then the same with PSV really has happened. You thought, not a bad draw. You then look a little bit closer, look at the players that they've got, look at how well they're playing. You think, okay, yeah, no, it'll be really tough again.
Yeah, but Brendan Rodgers will know. He'll have detailed rundowns on their capabilities, their strengths and weaknesses, etc. And as Ewan says there, it's a tough old draw again. Rennes was a extremely tough draw, and people, I think initially people were quite pleased with that, as you say, and then we had a look beneath the surface of things, shall we say, and all of a sudden thought, hang on a minute, this could be a big ask, and it was, and it took a monumental effort over the 2 legs. Leicester really had to dig in, didn't they? Show some character.
Yeah.
People, a couple of injuries that we mentioned there, people going down with cramp. They had to be patient. They had to play a different type of game at times to what they would like to, ideally. They played the long game. It worked to their benefit. They're going to have to do something similar again. I don't think they're going to go and smash PSV out of sight and have things done and dusted in the first leg, and I don't think that will happen to Leicester either. They've got to be prepared for the long haul. But ultimately, I think the confidence that they'll get, performing how they did against Rennes, who are a better side than they're generally given the credit for, will set them in good stead up against PSV.
Absolutely. Right, let's concentrate then again on the Premier League. Tony, a 2-1 win against Brentford at King Power Stadium on Sunday. You've already referenced the fact that it's hard playing in Europe on a Thursday, then going into a game on a Sunday. So how impressed were you with the Foxes yesterday?
No, really impressed, Dan, particularly in that first half. I think that's when you played the European games on a Thursday and then you play your game on the Sunday, 2 o'clock. It's one of those sort of in-between kickoffs. Sometimes the players can just be a little bit lethargic. You've done the travelling. And all right, it's only France, but you've still got to go through the process. You're still getting back late, or whenever you get back on a Thursday night, you then got prepared for the game. And sometimes I think it's easy to, and we've seen it many, many times, I might add, over the last 5, 6, 7 seasons with teams that have been in what would be the Europa League. I know Leicester are in the Conference League, but the Europa League teams that performed on a Thursday night found it very, very difficult on a Sunday. And I can only praise Leicester for their attitude, their commitment, their skill as well, because some of the passing, the way they played, the goals which we'll talk about, and, it just, for me, was an outstanding first half performance. And I think if you put that first half performance in, the boys will tell you, if you're 2-0 down at half time, it makes it very, very hard for the opposition to get back into the game. Yes, they huffed and puffed a little bit. They got their goal back late in the game, but I think the damage was done in that first half, and that's why I say I can't stress enough how vital and how good it was that Leicester performed like they did in that first half.
Because then it almost gives them an opportunity in the second half to take the foot off the gas a little bit if there is fatigue from Thursday.
Was that to me, Dan? Sorry.
Yes, Tony.
Yeah. It does. Once you get 2 goals up, you can control the game. And the one thing we know about Leicester is that if you can defend well, and they did defend well at times in that second half. I know Brentford had a few chances and relied on Casper a lot, but you're going to get that. They're going to put you under a bit of pressure. But once you get that 2 goals up in at half time, the type of team Leicester are, it suits them because they can then play some counter-attacking football, which they did. Iheanacho really should have wrapped it up anyway, in that second half with the chance he had. But, that once you're 2 goals up, it makes a massive difference. And psychologically, it's still one of those funny scores. If they get an early goal back in the second half, the pressure can be on. But Leicester defended well. They relied on their goalkeeper at times, but, they saw the game through. And it's a big 3 points, Dan. You've got to put it in perspective. They're now in the top half of the Premier League, and it gives them a real outside chance of trying to catch the teams up above them. But with games in hand, and I know that will be difficult, trying to juggle that with the Conference League games. But they've got some games in hand. They've got a few players coming back from injury that we're going to speak about. So, the future looks bright for Leicester. And most importantly, a 2-week break coming up.
Yeah, that could well be key, actually, Ewan, this break coming up for Leicester. I know, obviously, all teams have the break, but Leicester, with the players they have returning from injury, a couple of players that are still on the sidelines but close, it's a great opportunity to just everyone take stock and really look ahead now to this final part of the season. It
is. It's a couple of weeks for Brendan and the squad to get ready for what's in front of them. There's some big games ahead. We've already touched on the Europa Conference quarter-final against PSV. There's some big league games coming up as well. 10 points behind Wolves in 8th with 3 games in hand. So it's not inconceivable that they could catch Wolves. Great to see Johnny Evans back yesterday, playing what came on for the last 20 minutes. James Justin got a full game under his belt. That will do him the world of good. There was no obviously Wesley Fofana after his heroics on Thursday night. He was taken out of the squad, and I think that probably is the right decision. How far is Jamie Vardy? Where will Jamie be after these next 2 weeks? Obviously, there's players going to go away on international duty and play for their respective countries. You just hope that they can come back and be fully fit and firing to go for the run-in. But it's going to be an interesting end to the season, that's for sure. And people would think, Brentford, Leicester should turn them over. It's not that easy. Brentford coming into the game yesterday, full of confidence, having won back-to-back games for the first time this season after their win at Norwich, and then back that up with that home win against Burnley. They're a big physical side. You have to match that. They're good at set pieces. I thought defensively against set pieces, Leicester was strong. And as TC sort of alluded to, Casper had to make a couple of 3 very good saves in that game. But that's what he's in the goal for. That's what he's paid to do. That is his job. I thought it was a good win, considering 7 changes from the team that started on Thursday. I thought when you look at the big picture, you look at the whole thing. I thought it was a very, very good win. And home form has been very, very good this season, Dan.
Yeah, it has for Leicester, actually. That's one thing we picked up on yesterday, Matt, really, that the home form, I think it's now 4 in a row at home in all competitions for the Foxes, wins, that is, of course. So last season they saw that dip. Is it to do with the fact that there were no fans there? A lot of clubs suffered worse home form, didn't they? But it's so important that it is better, and it was better yesterday. And as soon as that first goal went in again, the atmosphere was brilliant all afternoon.
Yeah, and it was one of those occasions where they had to be strong-minded, really, because we've mentioned, on the back of Thursday, and a nice, bright, sunny day, wasn't it? That helped to sort of lift the crowd spirits a little bit. There was a good atmosphere, but the players had to sort of feed off that a little bit, and easier said than done. Like reacting how they did. They'd be strong mentally, because it's so easy to go, or so difficult, shall I say, to actually replicate that level of performance that they showed at times on Thursday. Overall, it was a huge effort for them against Rennes. And psychologically, even though you try and tell yourself to be super professional, your standard can just slip a little bit, and it doesn't take a lot to have a negative impact. And I thought Leicester applied themselves exceptionally well. They got themselves up for the game. There were some tired bodies out there, and you saw that with a couple of changes, people coming out, and others being included, who freshened it up a little bit. I think Brendan Rodgers deserves the credit there for the way he mixed his team selection round. Leicester managed the game well, didn't they? And they knew not to try and be exhilarating and all guns blazing, and perhaps that the standard wasn't going to be there. They have to be sort of a bit more methodical about it, and their quality would come through. And that was how it worked in the first half, wasn't it, really? Leicester had enough class at the right times with two magnificent strikes, 2 goals, and even in the second half, Brentford sort of made a fist of it, but Leicester looked in control, didn't they? With 1 or 2 scares of a sort. Schmeichel made one particularly good save when the header that came back at him quickly tipped it over the bar. But it was only that as soon as they lost concentration, as in Daniel Amati made the wrong decision, and Leicester paid the price for it with the goal. Visa. It was only then there was a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of nervousness and tension in the game. The rest of it, they just managed it very well. And that's a sign of a good side. And they're going to have to learn how to do that more regularly, hopefully, because they'll be competing in Europe season in, season out over the next few seasons.
Yeah, we'll talk about, obviously, Leicester's 2 goals, Tony, but it had to be a great goal to beat Kasper Schmeichel. And to be fair to Visser, it was, but I guess on the flip side of that, you look and you think Leicester restricted them to very, very little, other than that when Kasper was called upon. But then the goal itself was a very, very good strike.
Yeah, it was, and it was going to have to be. You got that impression that Kasper was in really good form. A couple of really good saves, particularly the first one from the header that Matt just spoke about from Janssen. I think it was the Mbuena header. He might have been offside, but you still don't know that. You've still got to save the ball. Just a little bit, Amate just poor, really, wasn't it? But which you can't be too critical on him, because he's been fantastic. I think he's got into that position. He's done really, really well alongside Soyuncu. He's helped Soyuncu. He's looked a lot more stable as well recently. I think Amate's certainly played his part. So you can't be too harsh on him, but if you give the ball away in that sort of area, you're potentially going to get punished. But the quality of the strike, it was a wonderful strike. It was probably the only place he's going to beat Kasper. I think if it had gone to Kasper's right, I think he would have saved it, because it goes across a couple of defenders. Perhaps he's very, very slightly unsighted with it, but it was right in the corner, and it was a fantastic strike. But coming in the 85th minute, if that had come in, as I said earlier, in the 55th minute, it might well have been a different second half. But, Leicester deserved the 3 points and that. And, yeah, it's always disappointing. I think, particularly as a goalkeeper and as a back four in general, I think you take great pride in clean sheets. So they would have been disappointed to concede a goal. But the main thing, again, is always the result. And, and Leicester thoroughly deserved to win 2-1.
Right, let's talk about the Leicester goals, Ewan. Firstly, Timothy Castagna. Matt and I actually at one point were surprised in the first 10 minutes that James Justin was playing off the right, Castagna off the left. And it turned out it was a great decision, because Castagna has put one in the top corner like that.
And that's one advantage of having a right-footed player playing at left back. It was a fantastic strike. I think he actually started the move. The move started down the left-hand side. It was played through midfield. It found its way to the right wing. little ball into Mendy. It's a great cross-field ball then from Mendy to Harvey Barnes. And normally you'd see Harvey Barnes sort of running at the right back and trying to beat him and trying to cut in and do what he's done many times in a Leicester shirt, shooting with his right foot. But he gives it to Timothy Castagne, and it is a fantastic strike. It's a great goal, And I say it many times. He couldn't have picked the ball. He couldn't have picked the ball up and placed it any better. To be fair, and he scored his debut at West Brom, didn't he? Yeah, a couple of years ago. He's a top player. What's he got? 21 Dutch caps. He's already scored for Belgium. The international team. He's adaptable. He can play. He played against Wales in our last game, and he played on the right of the three at the back. So he can play anywhere across that back line. And just once again, it's just a shame that he's been one of these players that's been out for such a long time with injuries. But great to see him back, and the joy that he must have felt having seen that go into the top corner after, I'm sure, what's been a frustrating time for him.
Yeah, he picked up that horrible injury at the Euros, didn't he? The head injury where he clashed heads, and I think, was that in the quarterfinals maybe for Belgium? I can't remember what it was, but it was a horrible injury. He then missed a lot of the season, or the start of the season, because of that. Came back in, then got injured again, and it's almost summed up Leicester's season, really, Matt, hasn't it, with players, particularly defenders, getting injuries. But to see him return in the way that he did and score a goal like that was fantastic to see, and the crowd obviously were loving it.
Yeah, he's a top-level performer, isn't he? He's got many attributes. As is the case with a lot of players these days, his athleticism. He can get up and down the left or right-hand flank all day long, pretty much, certainly when he's at peak fitness, and he's physical enough, he's aggressive enough, and he's got plenty of technique, as we've seen there. I think the only thing you could probably say, that I'd like to see more of that, not necessarily expecting curlers in the top corner from 20 yards, but more impact in advanced areas, maybe. He puts in a lovely cross, particularly from the right-hand side, also capable from the left. A really valuable asset to have. Brendan Rodgers within the squad. Numerous positions, as can a few players, James Justin, of course. Leicester are blessed in those fullback positions, aren't they? Luke Thomas, Ricardo was, what's going to happen there when everyone's fully fit? Hopefully that's the case soon. But I think Leicester looking at, they've mentioned it, it's probably been in the back of their mind, I think. They've realised, they've come to terms with the situation, how it's been. It's been bordering on ridiculous at times, hasn't it? The injury front. But that can't continue. Surely not. Must change soon. And with this rest period now, as you mentioned, like, there's players who've been sort of coming in for a game or playing an hour and having a rest, and then they're playing another half hour, and then they're getting a full game, then they're having a rest. Brendan's been able to rotate, manage a lot of them coming back from injuries, because he's seen the effect of coming back, just doing too much too soon. But he's got a good blend now. At centre half, for Farnley, you mentioned it, he was unbelievably good in the week. Considering being out for as long as he was with that injury, he was just running the show at the back. Cajoling and inspiring and ordering everyone around. What is he, 20, 21 years of age? What a player. He is already, but he will be the very top level. But you've got him coming back. You've got Johnny Evans now. But Johnny Evans not rested. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what the lineup is in that back line. Soyuncu was maybe not man of the match, but one of the better players yesterday. Solid throughout. The penny's dropped with him. He's aggressive at the right times of late. He's taken over responsibility. But Leicester got so many options. There were numerous players out in different areas of the field yesterday, but there were 2 or 3 options to come in on every position, where it's centre midfield, up top, out wide. They've got so many strings to their bow now, and it bodes well if they can get the injuries, all of them, as a deep squad, fit and ready to go. It could have as good a finish to the season as anything.
Yeah, how exciting is it seeing Johnny Evans back in action as well, Tony?
It's a massive plus for the club. I think we've all about it. You know, we've got our regulars on this panel that talk, and you know, I know what Tags thinks of Johnny Evans. I mean, it's a real plus. You know, he's been a real big miss. You know, defensively, it's been so tough for Leicester. Really, really tough. It's just been one of those seasons, and I think every now and again, clubs go through it. I mean, as an example, if you look at Liverpool a couple of years ago when they lost Van Dijk and Gomez, and they was a completely different team defensively. And, you know, Leicester, not only have they lost sort of their centre halves, as in Fofana and Johnny Evans, they've lost the fullbacks as well that Matt was just talking about. So, you know, it's been extremely difficult for them as a football club to deal with all that. You know, but now that the players are coming back, particularly Johnny Evans, because, you know, I'm a huge fan. I think he's got all that experience. He's commanding. Everything you want from a centre half. He just organises it. It gives them a little bit more, I think, the option to play three at the back, which I know Brendan likes to do at the time. I think that is easier when Johnny Evans is in that back three. So he's a real plus and a real positive for everyone coming back. And I think he got around about half an hour yesterday. And Matt just briefly touched on it. You have to manage these players. You can't just say Johnny Evans is fit, he hasn't played in 4 months, put him straight back in. You can't do that with players. Well, you can, but then you've got to accept the consequences, because sometimes you bring players back too quickly, their body's not ready for it, you get a secondary injury, and then they're out again for another 6 weeks, which is not what we want with Johnny Evans. So, you know, with the likes of Fofana, correct decision not to involve him. With Johnny Evans, you've got 2 weeks of intensive work now, and although you can do that training and you can try and get that fitness back, it's not the same as playing games. And once they get back to playing games, it'd be very interesting, particularly if I think it's Manchester United, isn't it? The next Premier League game. It'd be very, very interesting to see what that back four or back five consists of.
Yeah, I think both of these two have touched upon it, Ewan. The return of Johnny Evans isn't just, you know, good on an individual level, what he does to the back four purely from what he does. It's what he does for everybody around him as well.
I just think his presence on and off the pitch is massive, Dan. I mean, you'll know better than me because you're in and around the squad at the training ground. I can imagine he's the ultimate professional in everything that he does. I can imagine, because it is quite a young squad, there are quite a lot of young lads in that Leicester squad. I can imagine that they all look up to him. They all listen to him. You know, if they've got problems, I can imagine that he's a player that they would go and speak to about certain things. Yeah. In the team, he's a leader, even though he hasn't got the captain's armband. You know, he's an organizer. You know, he's always talking. He's always, you know, backing out in instructions. And players like that are so important. They're invaluable, and it's a massive hole to fill. And that's why you look at the job that Daniel Amarty's he's done since he's come in. He's been tremendous. Yeah, he had a lapse of concentration yesterday, but 9 times out of 10, he's been brilliant. You know, because he knows that when everybody's fit, he might not be starting. But getting these players slowly, because if you look at the last 2 seasons, and the finish to both seasons have been disappointing, hence missing out. And hopefully this season will be the opposite, where Leicester can finish strongly. Not going to say they're going to, you know, finish in a Europa League place, because I think it's 12 points behind Manchester United, even though a couple of games in hand. You know, finish as high as possible. You know, finish on a high and take that confidence and that togetherness and that good team spirit, take it into the cup competition.
James Maddison, Tony, he's now scored a couple of free kicks in the last few games. The one yesterday was absolutely brilliant. You know just how good he is from set pieces. Obviously, you saw his free kick away at Southampton a few seasons ago, but it's great having him back in form.
Yeah, I think the main thing about James is the confidence aspect of it. He's playing as a footballer. You know, his overall game, he's playing with confidence now. And the reason I mention that word, because it must be a great feeling when you put the ball down as a dead ball specialist to actually think that you're going to score a goal. Because, you know, football is such a mental game, and there must be times when you're not playing very well. You know, perhaps maybe earlier in the season, as an example, you know, where it was difficult for James at times, where you put the ball down and the crowd expect you to do what he did yesterday every single time. you know, because that's just the natural feeling. You think that he's a good enough player, he can do that every single time, and you can't. And if you put that ball down and you're struggling with confidence, you must be hitting the wall before you've even kicked the ball, because you're just not going to get it over the wall. But we've seen, particularly in the last couple of months, I think he's re-emerged as the talent that we all know he is anyway. And, you know, he's been outstanding in terms of his general play. But that free kick yesterday, I mean, I watched Danny Murphy on Match of the Day sort of saying about how the wall could have jumped and it could have prevented it maybe, but I don't think so. I think there was an angle where you saw the ball, it went so far over the wall and dipped, and it was just a phenomenal free kick. It really was. He'd done everything right. It always astounds me when you look at the run-up, and I think James touched on it himself about how he used to watch the videos of David Beckham taking his free kicks, another fantastic free kick taker. And if you look at the angle of their run-up, you know, it's just an angle that I wouldn't, me personally, if I was trying to hit a free kick, I wouldn't look to hit it from that angle. But they come around almost like square on. And you're thinking, how are they going to hit the ball like that? And you see players taking corners as well nowadays, the angle of their run-up. But I think it's specifically done to get that whip, as much of a whip. And, you know, it's such a I can't tell you how much of a difficult skill it is to get it, to get the ball over the wall, to get it to dip, to get it to curl, to do it with pace. It's just a fantastic skill that he's got. I mean, there's other good players. You've got to mention Ward-Prowse. I mean, he's a fantastic free kick taker. But if you're talking about top 5, even top 3 free kick takers in the Premier League, James is right up there. It was a phenomenal goal.
Yeah, and when the free kick was given as well, which, by the way, it goes without saying, James Maddison won the free kick as well, didn't he? As soon as it was given, you thought, this is really in James Maddison territory, Ewan, and you had confidence that he'd step up and he'd score it. As Tony's saying, he probably believes he can score every single time.
Well, I think it was in an identical position as the one he scored against Randers. You know, slightly favoured the right footer, so there's no one else going to take that free kick. Probably the same sort of distance to the free kick he scored against Randers. Dan, I've seen him score free kicks for Aberdeen when he was on loan from Norwich. I've seen him score goals from that type of situation from Norwich. We're not surprised, are we? We know we know he's capable. We know he's got the technique. We know he's got the skill levels to do that. It just doesn't happen. That's hours of practice. That's hours after he's finished a session of maybe taking 20 balls and just repetition, getting those mannequins that they have now at training grounds and just, you know, putting the ball into the back of the net. And I saw a start yesterday, and out of English players playing in the Premier League, there's no Englishman has scored and assisted in more goals than James Maddison this season. He's been involved in 21.
Certainly attacking midfielders, English attacking midfielders.
Yeah, I think Jared Bowen, he's up there with 21. He's had a fantastic season for West Ham. You know, people go on about Jack Grealish. He's got 7. And it does leave you scratching your head what James Maddison has to do to get into that England squad. You know, you look at the goal he scored against Burnley, the 2 he scored against Randers, the free kick yesterday. That statistic alone, he can't do much more, to be fair, to be knocking on that door. Now, what does James have to do to get into Gareth Southgate's squad?
Well, if he's finding form at this time, that'd be a good time to do it, Matt, with a World Cup at the end of the calendar year. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, all these things are being said about James, rightly so. The ironic thing is he's not even in the starting lineup regularly, week in, week out. It was, you know, he's been not on the fringes, but he's, you know, with the emergence of Dewsbury Hall and Tillemans there in midfield and Didi as it was, I wouldn't say he was ousted from the team, but he was finding himself on the sidelines and coming on as almost a super sub. It seemed a bit of a weak label to put on James Maddison's name, but you know, he hasn't started that many games of late. He must be getting a little bit frustrated, if not concerned, because you think it's just a matter of time. But such is the level of depth of the squad that Leicester have got again there. But you just said there with that stat there, they've been different times, haven't there, where he's had a little struggle at times earlier in the season. Yeah, because his injury, and I think he was conscious of that hip. Still didn't seem 100% right. Didn't move correctly. Then all of a sudden, you saw him moving more fluently, sharply, more quickly, quite basically. And since then, he hasn't really looked back, has he? And those stats that you have said, they're incredible, aren't they? And you fancy him in any game that he takes part on, whether it's off the bench or from the start, to be a key factor, don't you? Whether it is that assist or that goal. And people used to say about him, oh yeah, he's attractive on the eye as a player, and end product's not there maybe often enough. Can't say that now.
No.
Can't say that now at all. And yet another quality player that Leicester have got. I mean, you almost got to find a place for him in the system that Leicester play, the midfield as it is now. He almost got squeezed in yesterday. Would he have played if Albrighton was fit? I don't know from the start. But what a player to have at your disposal, yeah.
Right, what other results caught your eye, Ewan, at the weekend? Doesn't necessarily have to be Premier League, can be FA Cup as well.
One that caught me eye was the first game of the weekend. One of my former clubs, Wolves, Leeds. I mean, it was a great win for Leeds. Coming back the way they did. I think, they were helped with the sending off, which I've seen a few times, and I'm not sure. I think it's just a coming together of a goalkeeper and Jimenez. I thought he was really, really unlucky. One of TC's former teams, Everton. What a performance by them yesterday! Absolutely awful, and rightly so. Frank Lampard being really critical, because that was just embarrassing the way they didn't turn up at Sellers Park. It's as simple as that. But a great result from Crystal Palace to win 4-0, even though they've got a tough game in the semi-final of the FA Cup against Chelsea. So those are the two that stand out for me. I mean, Leeds going to Wolves and just lifting the pressure. I think that's back-to-back wins for them now after they beat Norwich last weekend, and going to Wolves, which is not easy. I tell you, Wolves have had a great season. I think defensively they're rock solid. So to score 3 goals at Molineux, that was a magnificent. And the second win for their new coach, Jesse Marsh.
Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Ewan, for mentioning Everton. Dearie me. I mean, great win against Newcastle on Thursday for them. Much needed win in the Premier League. And I'm sure Frank would probably argue that was more important than an FA Cup quarter-final, sadly, because I think the FA Cup's a great competition. But I watched the first 15 minutes or so, Palace Everton, and before I went to Tottenham, and they looked okay. But, they conceded a goal in another goal, and in the second half performance, I don't think was good enough. So, there's big issues there for Frank. He's got to sort that team out, stay in the Premier League, the most important thing, and then rebuild for next season. In terms of other results, I think perhaps a little, again, I don't like to do this, but a little bit of praise for Arsenal, because I think, that was Villa. I saw Villa last weekend at West Ham. It wasn't particularly good, but, Villa Park, we all know it's a difficult place to go to. They controlled the game. They won 1-0, but it could have been a lot more than that. And they look certainly favourites to get in that 4th position as things stand at the moment.
Matt, finally then.
Well, the Everton one is the one that sticks out. Yeah, but we obviously mentioned that. But going a little bit left field. Monaco 3, PSG 0. What about that one? No one saw that one coming, did they? Problems at the back. Giants.
And I bet you never see that one either, Matt. You just looked at the result. You didn't see the game, did you?
Correct.
I want a detailed analysis of how the game went, please. Yeah.
I can give you that next week.
Oh, yeah, next Monday, this time next week. Okay, yeah. All right, brilliant. Right, let's do our football Jenga to end the show then. One thing we didn't mention is Leicester City scored their 800th Premier League goal yesterday in 601 games. That's a ratio of 1.33 a game. Just chuck that one in there for you, Matt, because I know you like those stats like that, don't you? So the theme for this is any Leicester City player in the club's top 30 all-time Premier League goal scorers. So for a little bit of context of that, that's any player that's scored 8 or more Premier League goals for Leicester City.
Ooh.
So it's the top 30, basically. So 8 or more Premier League goals for Leicester City, or any player that has done that. Tony Cottee, you can kick us off, please.
No, I will nominate myself, Dan.
And you would be correct. Iwan Roberts.
Jamie Vardy.
Riyad Mahrez, whichever way you want to go.
James Maddison must have got more than 8 Premier League goals.
Got 8 this season. Kelechi Iheanacho.
My old teammate, Muffy, is it?
Emil Heskey.
Good shout. Stevie Claridge. Oh, go on, Stevie boy.
You weren't sure there, were you?
I wasn't 100% convinced.
Scraped a few off different parts of his body, didn't he? Ian Marshall.
I'm just going to say that, Tex. Matt, I'm just going to say that. Matt, you must have. Have we had Matt already? Matt, you must have scored more than 8 Premier League goals.
Is that your answer? Yep.
Yep.
Correct.
Tell him, Bates, and tell him how many.
Matt's in the top. What did we establish? You were the 8th top scorer still, was it, for Leicester? 18? Yeah.
22.
22, sorry. Yeah. Make sure you get it right. You were saving yourself there for a bit later on, Matt, weren't you?
I was hoping to go under the radar then. Imagine if I won it with me at the end. They'd go, yeah.
Yuri Tillemans.
Yeah.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Harvey Barnes.
Why do you say it like that?
He
He's not
sounds
from the West
like
Country,
he's
is he?
from the West Country to me, Harvey Barnes.
I'm going to go another old teammate, Steve Guppy.
He's been there such a long time. I'm going to go Mark Albrighton.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got it, hasn't he? 8. Ooh, that's a bit borderline. That's a bit borderline then. No. God, it's 30, are they? Premier League, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
We're doing better than this. Right. Leo Ulloa.
Good answer.
I know I'm thinking of, but I ain't going to say his name right, so I'm not going to mug myself off. I'm going to change that. There, mate, I'm in trouble now.
To make things easier for you, there are teammates of yours that you
No, I know that, and I'm trying to think of them. Struggling. I am struggling now. Walshy.
Oh,
That's a great shout. That's a great shout.
that was my next one.
I didn't really want to. This is my sort of bank. I didn't want to throw it in until.
You always
Final.
win anyway, you, and it doesn't matter. You always win. It doesn't matter.
I'm going to go for Iwan Roberts.
Well done, Ewan. Well done, Ewan.
Well done, mate.
I wasn't quite.
Scraped in with 9. Scraped in with 9.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure on Premier League bit.
Oh, yeah, this one season, mate.
Right.
So you got 9 in the season where Leicester got relegated. That's good going, Ewan.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, not many lads would have got over 8. Mind you, it's over 3 years, isn't it? 5 years. Shinji Okazaki.
Oh, what a
That
shout!
was a
that
name I
is.
couldn't think of, Matt. Yes, that's outrageous. I couldn't remember
You
it.
should have asked me, I'd have lent it, yeah.
I'm in trouble now. Big trouble now. I'll say Lenny, but I don't think he got enough goals.
Yeah, I'm afraid not. No.
Oh, good. I was thinking about him.
What about
Do own goals count?
Mark Robbins?
Oh, yes.
Nope.
No. Oh, you're in, Matt. You're in.
Right, come on, Matt, to win it.
Robbo didn't get 8. Oh.
Any more of our teammates left, Dan, is there?
Well, I'll tell you what. Big Jerry.
Big Jerry wins it for Matt Elliott. Yeah, well done.
Oh, great, Matt. Great.
Oh, thanks. Good lad. Good.
Well done. Yeah, I think Jerry scraped in with 8 when he was in there. So, yeah, I thought, can we have a boom to win it? A Jerry Taggart boom. He's won you, Matt. No, you're not. too early on a Monday morning for you, that is it. The ones you missed, Adi Ekenbayi, Jose Perez, David Lowe, Damari Gray, Islam Slimani, James Scowcroft, Les Ferdinand, Marcus Bent, Paul Dickoff, Robbie Savage and Wes Morgan.
Yes, I was going to say, Seth.
I was going to say Sam. I thought, can't have it.
I thought, it can't be right.
Yeah.
There's 11 that you missed, so you did all right. You got 19 between you, but yeah, missed 11 there.
Well, I didn't officially miss any. I didn't need.
Yeah, you'd have got 7 or 8 of those last 11.
Yeah, of course, Matt.
Correct.
All right, well, brilliant. There'll be no show next week, of course, because it's an international break. So we've got a nice couple of weeks off. We'll be back again, though, for the Manchester United game, 5:30 kickoff a week on Saturday. So we'll be on air from, 4 o'clock. So do join us for that. Thanks to Matt, to Tony, and to Ewan. Ewan, enjoy your international escapades this week.
Boys.
Wales. Good luck to them.
All Wales. Yeah, Austria in the Cardiff City Stadium.
Yeah, well, good luck to them.
No Danny Ward, though, gutted.
Yeah, with that injury. So hopefully they can still do the business for you. All right, brilliant, guys. Appreciate that. Have a good one.